Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday, and wow, did Ryan Day make a huge move today. He has hired Joe Philbin, the Dallas Cowboys offensive line coach for the last 3 years, former NFL head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator, and also one of Brian Hartline's head coaches in the NFL. So really nice little fit there. Big hire, in my opinion. We're going to break that down, what it means, what his role will be, and how he can really help enhance this young offensive line. He's an O-line guy. He's got an O-line background. He's worked with guys like Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, some fantastic players. And what does it mean for some of these young Bucks that are really trying to make their way and grow in that offensive line room? But first, as always, thank you guys. Enjoy doing this with you guys every night. It's a blast. Thank you for the energy that you bring, for all the great questions you bring. If you guys are listening to this on a tape delay, come to our live shows, 7 o'clock, 7:30 every night usually. They're a blast, a lot of interaction, a lot of question and answer. We have a fantastic core group of people that are on here a lot, so we appreciate you guys. As always, shout out where you're from. Put that in the comments, whether you're live or you're listening to this on YouTube. I want to hear where you guys are watching from. I love seeing that, even if you do it every day. I love seeing Naples, Florida, Canton, Ohio, Massillon, California, Europe, Asia, all over the place. I love seeing that. So thank you guys. If you enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click that thumb. That is huge for our video success. So thank you for that. It's a big way to help us. Click subscribe. Again, most of you guys are subscribers, but keep on subscribing. Send this to your friends. Say, hey, consider subscribing because we're bringing the heat every night. Even when it's dry, we're the oasis. We're bringing the good stuff. And then, as always, if you like these live shows, click the little bell alert and get cranked up. So with that being said, I am going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck, who I know really enjoyed Joe Philbin when he was the offensive coordinator and won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nevada, this was a late in the day story that broke. You had some inside information. Talk a little bit about what's been going on for the last week or so at the Woody Hayes with Joe Philbin and the staff and strength coach team. What has he been doing? Kind of pondering if he wanted to jump into college football, which he hasn't been in a long time.
Yeah, well, he's been around. I mean, he's been around here for the last week or so, and hanging around. The word was going to be that he was going to just come up, do a little bit of a consultancy, look at some things with some fresh eyes, check out, give some ideas, and was really impressed with the overall quality of the talent on the offensive side in general, on the offensive line in particular, and actually made the suggestion that they upgrade this to a full-time analyst role, and Ryan Day closed the deal. So, I mean, we've seen Nick Saban, we talk about a lot about, Alabama as being kind of the gold standard for college football teams, and they are in so many ways. They've really led the way in terms of, medical redshirting and, roster processing and use of analysts. And, I mean, you can just go down the list of things that they've done, and they've done better than everybody else. And, analysts is really one of the things that's at the top of the list. And they've made a market out of going out and getting ex-college football head coaches, ex-NFL head coaches, and bringing them in to these analyst roles or assistant coaching roles, and churn through their staff, but really brought some expertise. Well, this is Ryan Day's really first big one on this. I mean, to get a former NFL head coach, a guy that's coached the Cowboys line for the last few years, just an absolutely gigantic hire. And again, I just think this continues to point to the evolution of Ryan Day, and the evolution of Ryan Day is, we have to remember, he was a really young, inexperienced head coach when he was handed the reins here at Ohio State. And so, he wasn't a finished product. He wasn't a guy that had done this, at a MAC level, at a Power 5 level somewhere else. Never done it before, never been a head coach. And so I think this is just kind of it's just showing his continued growth. And as an Ohio State fan, I just couldn't be happier about it. I couldn't be happier. I always say we're one of the few people on the beat, probably the only people on the beat that are willing to say when Ryan Day does something wrong, because we're not beholden to Ohio State. We're not the people that are beholden, can't call us up and threaten us with anything, or we'll pull this. We're like, we don't care. We're going to say what we're going to say. We're going to tell the truth. We're just going to go on. But that also includes giving credit when it's due. And this was a big hire. Great job by Day. Great job by Hartline. Couldn't be happier about it. And I think it's going to pay huge dividends for Ohio State and again, just continue this growth of Ryan Day as a head coach, which I just couldn't be more happy about.
Yeah, I think that, when Kevin Wilson walks out the door to become the head coach of Tulsa, which is the job that he deserved, you lost a fantastic coach who had coached at multiple levels in the profession. He's been a fantastic offensive line coach. He's been a fantastic offensive coordinator. I thought he was a fantastic head coach at Indiana. He made Indiana, which is as bad of a program as there is in the country, into a team that could literally almost beat us. I was there in 2012 and we beat them like 52-49, and we had way better players than they did, but they out-schemed us, they outplayed us, they played harder than we did, and credit to Kevin Wilson. So he walks out the door. You promote Keenan Bailey, a guy who's been an intern, a GA, a quality control coach, assistant, associate to the head coach. He's had about 9 different roles at Ohio State. He was an intern at Notre Dame with Tony Alford. And Ryan likes to promote from within probably more than any coach I've ever seen in the history of college football. And that's good and bad. I mean, it's good because you're going to have guys that are loyal to you. You're going to have guys that they're known quantities. I think he, after how Mike Yurcich turned out and some of these guys turned out, even Jeff Hafley, a guy who, obviously did a great job in 2019 running the defense. Jeff Hafley was only here for a year. And generally, if you're Ryan Day or Urban Meyer or a head coach, when you bring a guy in to be a coordinator, you bring a guy in to be a position coach. It's kind of a gentleman's agreement. Hey, if I'm going to give you this great job, you need to give me 2 years, And so when Hafley left him after 1 year, that kind of burned him a little bit. So, he's been getting a little bit more of the guys from inside the program, especially on the offensive side where he has a lot more control, a lot more knowledge than he does the defensive side. But you lose a lot of experience when Kevin Wilson walks out the door. And you've got Brian Hartline running the wide receivers, and now he's the OC. Brian's only been in the game for 5 years, and this is his first year as a coordinator. Keenan Bailey, this is his first job ever. Parker Fleming, this is his first, decent job above like a 1AA team ever. So you got a really young, inexperienced staff that, frankly, if Ryan Day didn't hire him, I don't know where a lot of these guys would be at. So you need to come get a guy who's got massive experience. He's got 40 years of coaching experience. And Joe Philbin, a guy that, was a head coach in the NFL. He's the only guy in that building who's been a head coach in the NFL, which gives me a lot of respect. He's been Super Bowl winning coordinator, coached the Dallas Cowboys last year on the O-line. I thought he actually did a pretty decent job considering Tyron Smith, who I think at a point was the best tackle in the league, is probably a Hall of Famer. He was injured for a long portion of the year. He was a franchise left tackle. They had to move him to right tackle last year. He was dealing with a rookie left tackle, had a lot of young guys playing for him. And, it's hard in the league, man, because when you lose Zach Martin and Tyron Smith, you don't have those guys coming off the bench. That's why, when people are like, well, we don't have 7 tackles that can play. And I'm like, well, wait till you get to the NFL when you just 7 guys on game day. And, if you lose Trent Williams or Tyron Smith or a star tackle, you got a practice squad guy in there. So you better gussy it up and make it work somehow, even though, there's a massive talent drop off, which again, that's why I don't worry about when we lose Paris Johnson. Cause in the NFL, there's, teams lose guys to free agency. There's guys that get hurt. And you always have to have the next guy ready to go. So Joe Philbin, I think, him having dealt with that last year in Dallas, he's got to get guys ready to go in spots. And it might be spots that they think that they haven't played before or they don't have experience at, because Tyron Smith is the best left tackle in football than Trent Williams and Laramie Tunsil. And he convinced him to play right tackle last year because he had a rookie left tackle that was playing really well. Tyron played right tackle at USC. So, there might be some switching around this year. There might be some moving of guys. If I'm a young offensive lineman, I'm just telling you, if I'm George Fitzpatrick or some of these kids, if I'm Luke Montgomery, I am at that guy's office at 7 a.m. every day, watching tape. I'm learning. I'm doing as much drill work as I legally can do. I'm pushing every limit possible to really learn and comprehend what this guy likes, because if we want to be really real, this is a great bullpen hire. This is a thing where Justin Fry really wants to be a head coach. Everybody knows that. I love Justin Fry. I think he's a fantastic guy. I think he's going to be a head coach. And, if you're Ryan Day, this is kind of Joe Philbin, this little audition in the bullpen. See how he does with the O-line. Because if Tom Allen stinks it up at Indiana and gets fired after 8 games, Justin Fry is the leading candidate there. So, that's his alma mater. That's where he was a captain at. It would be a great starter job for him. He's an O-line guy. O-line guys generally don't get premier jobs in college football or NFL football. That goes to the quarterback guy, goes to the offensive coordinator types. So, I think it's smart to have a guy in-house that can kind of fill Kevin Wilson's void and potentially replace Justin Fry should he get a head coaching job. Should he get that? I'm not saying that he's trying to push Justin Fry out the door. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it always helps to have a guy who's a veteran. When you're a young guy in that building and a guy walks in who coached Tyron Smith last year and Zach Martin, I'm like, tell me everything you know and tell me how I can get on that level of being $100 million left tackle or right guard like Zach Martin is. So, but Nevada, any other things you want to bounce off that? I know that was a long one, but I'm just telling you, I'm really excited about this hire. It was shocking to me. I've heard whispers from Nevada about this potentially happening, but we have coaches in the building all the time that pass through and observe and clinic, and then they go along their merry way, especially when guys are out of work like he was. But he stayed, which is awesome. But any other thoughts on that?
Well, no, I just, I like having an adult in the room, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's can't be emphasized enough. I think your point about losing Kevin Wilson and kind of losing, think about all the things all the boxes he checked, ex-head coach, offensive line guy, grizzled veteran, a creative offensive mind. You lost a lot of that when he left. And so now how do you replace that? You can't do it with a full-time hire, but these analyst roles are getting more and more involved, and the NCAA is giving them more and more latitude to be involved. So a guy like Joe is just, again, a perfect tonic for that. And I like I said, I couldn't be more excited about it. And I think it will pay huge dividends for the offensive line this year in a year where we've got a bunch of inexperienced guys. We've got a bunch of guys that haven't played before. And I think he's the perfect guy to bring in at the perfect time. So home run hire for Ryan Day.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think when you get these guys and they end up being, guys that command respect, they've got the big ring, they've got that Super Bowl ring. I think he's the guy that literally everybody in the building can learn from, because when you've been in the league for as long as he has, you've been as successful as he has. He's been the offensive coordinator for Aaron Rodgers, been the offensive line coach for Tyron Smith. He coached Brian Hartline in Miami. So there's some chemistry there. I love it. And again, like Justin Fry can learn a lot from a guy like Joe Philbin, who's been a head coach. He's been around great head coaches. Like I said, any guy that's been a coordinator and has won a Super Bowl, it's like the ultimate. He's got the big ring. So, there's not many guys in that building that have the big ring or any rings of any, matter. So, bringing a guy in like this is really good for business. I think, from a perspective of just getting the line better. I was really worried about Kevin Wilson leaving just because I know how active he was with the offensive line. And really this kind of alleviates it because, he was a big part of coaching that O-line as a tight ends coach and coordinator last year. And Keenan Bailey, he's a young guy. He has no experience on the offensive line other than sitting in on some meetings with Mike Saline and Justin Fry. But, Joe Philbin's coached it at the highest level. He's had to adjust in game. I think guys like that are invaluable, especially with Justin Fry being down on the sideline. I imagine Joe Philbin will be up in the booth, so he'll kind of be Justin Fry's eyes in the sky. Because, Justin Fry and a lot of times Mike Saline are both on the sideline, so I don't know who Justin talks to during the game to make adjustments. Because, again, there's a lot of chemistry that goes on between the guys up in the booth and guys down on the field in terms of relaying what they see. They don't have iPads like they do in the NFL or the Microsoft Surfaces. So, you really got to trust what people are telling you up in the box because you don't have the use of electronics like they do in the National Football League. So, and hopefully that changes because I don't understand why you can't have those in college football. Then they'll say it's a cost thing, but they're not that. It's not expensive to buy a $300 tablet that works. God, we've had a lot of great stuff going on the board. The tackle thing, it's interesting because we did a breakdown of how many 4-star tackles, 5-star tackles there are. There's only like 22 4-star tackles in the entire country, and there's one 5-star tackle in the entire country. So That's one of the big interesting things because Kirby Smart just took a 3-star offensive tackle from New York who's like 6'8", like 345. Looks a little doughy. I mean, I don't think his film is that great, but Stacey Stroll is a great O-line coach at Georgia. Obviously, just won a national championship with those guys, so he likes him. But does that surprise you, Nevada, that Georgia took a 3-star offensive tackle?
Hey, after they took Ali Luba, the famous Ali Luba, they took him. So if they took Ali Luba, then they'll take this guy as well. So no, look, hey, I've always thought with offensive line, especially, that you don't know, and the fact that this guy could turn out to be a bust, this guy could turn out to be great. I look at Ohio State's room, and I don't see a lot of, there's not a lot of 3-star heaven hanging around there in the 2 deep or even the 3 deep at Ohio State on the offensive line. All these guys, their tackles are all highly regarded guys. I mean, they're all top 100, top 200, top 300 type players, especially at the tackle positions. So we've got plenty of talent. We've got plenty of raw material. And like, hey, if we'd have done that, if I don't even want to bring up his name, but if a former offensive line coach had brought in a guy like that from Kirby Smart, then the site would be burning down right now. People would be picketing and going wild. But with the offensive line, you gotta get them, you gotta coach them up, and see what you got on the other side. But with Georgia's history with offensive linemen, I wouldn't bet against them because they've done a terrific job.
Yeah, and again, O line is so much of a projection because I was talking to a guy, big time O line guy earlier today, and he's like, a lot of these guys, you watch their film, they're big guys, they don't play anybody in their high school ranks, because if you live in Ohio or New York or Florida, I mean, how many SEC defensive ends do you play against? In out of your 10 regular season high school games, one, most of the time 0. You might see a MAC guy, but and how many snaps do you actually get against them? So you got to evaluate guys and kind of project where they're going to be at when they go against real talent, and then that's something that is kind of an art form when you're doing this offensive line recruiting. I mean, I used to do it. I used to have to watch. I watched Taylor Decker at Vandalia Butler, who ended up being a super $75 million extension guy, first round pick, All American, national champion, checked every box known to man, all Big Ten. But his high school film, he's a monster. He's 6'8", he probably weighed 290, is light. And he's just murdering these kids that aren't very big, these little tiny kids. They look like Mark Pantoni out there. He's just grabbing them, dumping them on his head like he's a little, like they're like little, like little kids. And I'm like, well, okay, he's killing a bunch of guys that he should kill because these guys look like they're 9-year-olds. They're little short guys, not athletic at all, little dweebs. And I'm just like, well, can he do that against Joey Bosa? Can he do that against the guys that we're going to need him to block? So you got to protect some guys they can. And some guys, when they, it's like when the bully gets punched in the mouth by someone the same size, like they wilt like a dead flower. So, that's something you have to project. You got the physical tools have to be there, but then yet the mental makeup and the toughness and the desire to get better is something that you really have to evaluate. Because I'm telling you, with Taylor, he was a really sharp kid. He wanted to be good. He needed to get tougher, and he got much tougher to the point where he fought one of his teammates when his team, by year, the first year, Jack Mewhort used to hit him over the head with the blocking dummy to try and make him tough because he was just like a little baby, little puppy. And then by the third year, he's like getting in fistfights with guys that were acting like punks that were freshmen. And he whipped guys that deserved it. So that made me very happy to hear that report from Coach Mick and some of those guys that Tay turned into Taylor. And again, that's why you can't count kids out early. But some kids, it ain't for everybody. I tell people, like, look, playing at Ohio State is the ultimate double-edged sword. Playing big-time college football is the ultimate double-edged sword because it's either going to be the greatest experience in your life or it's going to be the worst. It's going to be, and there's some guys that kind of just float through and that might be in the middle. But for most guys, they make it. They have the careers they want. They play great. They play hard, whatever. And then there's some guys that they get there and it's just too much. It's too hard. It's not as easy as playing at like Massillon, Washington or something. Like you got to go play good teams now, and that's the hard part. All of a sudden you got to go play against Michigan and you got to play well and you got to win. So it's tough. But I'm excited about, like I said, the Joe Philbin thing with some of the developmental linemen and even some of our older guys. A lot of our older guys haven't started many games. Like this guy, you know, like if I'm Josh Fryer, if I'm Donnie Jackson, I'm with this guy as much as possible because Justin Fry has got to be on the road recruiting. He'll camps, like kind of all this gunk that these guys deal with, and they've been doing it for all May. So Joe Philbin is going to always be around. He's always going to be sitting in the Woody, ready to work with these guys. So when these guys have some time between class, or if they're in all online classes, I'd be hanging out with this guy, learning, watching film as much as humanly possible. We got a lot of stuff on Jokic. I love Nikola Jokic. I think he's fantastic. Like he's like the most strange looking athlete who's the most dominant, one of the most dominant centers who's ever lived. And I loved him knocking the Lakers out last night, so I'm not gonna lie about that. What did you think of Jokic last night in Nevada?
Oh, I mean, he was great. I mean, the funny thing about him is, he was a guy that, was obviously lightly regarded coming into the NBA, but then even when he came into the NBA, he wasn't good. I mean, averaged 10 points a game or what it was his first year, and actually, developed himself into a Hall of Fame player. So it's like, not everybody's a finished product, and certainly that goes for Ohio State players as well. If Jokic can come into the NBA as not a developed player and develop himself into a absolute first ballot Hall of Famer, then we can't expect every kid that comes to Ohio State to be a finished product as well, because a lot of them take time, and especially with the bigs. We talked about this ad nauseum, but Corey Linsley was in the program for 4 years before he started the game, and like now he's the highest paid center in NFL history. So you just never know. You don't want to write off these kids too early, because sometimes they just need their chance to shine, and when they take it, they go with it.
Yeah, and some guys need to mature. Like Corey's the guy that needed to mature. And I loved Corey. I always thought he was a really good player. He really did well in one-on-one pass rush. He was insanely strong. Like I'm talking like a 600-pound squat guy. Nobody could bull rush him. I thought he had big upside. And I'll never forget, it was spring ball 2012. Me and Ed Warner, we kind of went through the list of guys and how long they should play in the spring game with Urban Meyer and in the press conference. Like, everybody kind of, Zach Smith, everybody run through their guys. How long does Braxton play? Braxton's playing one drive, and then Kenny G is taking over. And we said, like, Mewhort and Lindsley, they're going to play the first quarter, and that's it. And, we went out to practice, and it was funny because, Vrabel was always kind of a smart aleck, and he was always like, kind of condescending and funny, but I always liked him. But he said something like kind of smart to Corey about how you have 0 career starts and they're going to pull you after 1 quarter. Like, like, come on, like you've never even played a game at Ohio State and they're going to pull you. And Corey was balling that spring. I mean, he was really playing well, had a lot of momentum. And I was like, well, here's my thing. If we lose that guy, I don't know who's going to play center. So, I'm good. He can play one quarter of the spring game, and then he's our center for every single game that we're going to play in the fall when the games actually count. So, and Corey, had this miracle rise over his last 2 years. He's the guy I'll never forget it at Pro Day in 2013. I'm there. Urban Meyer's running around all these coaches. He's saying, look, he's as good as Mike and Marquise Pouncey. He's that good. I've seen them all. He's as good as Mike and Marquise. Like, and these coaches are like, yeah, right. Like the Pounceys that are both first round picks, like mid first round picks. Like he's not that good. And then, Corey goes like 5th round and starts game 1 for the Packers, up at Seattle versus, in the loudest team in the country or in the NFL. And he played great. He didn't have any bad snaps, got the calls, earned Aaron Rodgers' trust. So, and then, when he left, Aaron Rodgers, I don't think was thrilled, but, when the LA Chargers want to pay you, $70 million to play center and live in Southern California, like can't blame him there. So, good for him. And again, that's why you guys got to pay attention to these O-line guys. We're going to get into some, because again, it's a day that ends in Y, so we have to address J.J. Smith paranoia. So I got to put some J.J. Smith on. Nevada, are you nervous about us losing J.J. Smith?
No, relax. No, there's no worries about losing J.J. Smith. I know you're going to see lots of articles. There's going to be lots of clickbait. There's going to be lots of stuff talking about, can this team flip him? Can this team flop him? And Ohio State's got this on lockdown. I'm not worried about NIL. I'm not worried about anything with it. And I know I should probably leave myself some wiggle room on that, but I just refuse to do it. J.J. Smith equals Buckeye. Don't worry about it. Sleep easy. In the immortal words of Aaron Rodgers, relax.
Yeah. I just think, if I'm JJ, because I met JJ down in Naples for a 7-on-7 tournament. I talked to his dad for about an hour. Like one of my favorite kids I've ever been around at any level of football, NFL, college. His dad is a great person, very religious, very just like he's not like, I've been around dads where, I talk to him and I gotta go take a shower afterwards. JJ's dad is a really sharp guy. He's a fantastic guy. And you know what? I'm like, dude, go on every visit you want. Go eat all them steak dinners. Go hang out at the hotels, because official visits are like free vacations. For some of you guys that like to go on vacation, you like to eat the big meals, the 5-star meals at Hyde Park, Morton's, or whatever the big steakhouse is in town. That's what these things are. So if I'm dad, man, I'm like, let's chow down. And in the land of NIL and collectives, and we've got 3 collectives now that are all tug of warring over these kids, and they're all trying to raise money, and they're all trying to glad hand, and they all follow JJ Smith on Twitter and Instagram, and they're all talking to his dad, and the collectives are all talking to Mark Pantoni every day and talking to Ryan Day every day. And dude, drive your price up, make yourself more expensive. If you're just one of these kids that commits and you have no drama and you're not visiting Georgia and you're not visiting Miami, and you're not visiting USC, and you're not visiting Penn State, you're not visiting New Hampshire and Antarctica and Uganda and all these other colleges or places or whatever, then your value is almost nothing because they don't think that there's any volatility to your recruitment. Now, if you're going to Georgia and Dylan Earl has blown you kisses and all the Georgia beat writers are right now, oh, he's gonna flip and all this stuff, then the bag is going to get substantially bigger from these Ohio State collectives. So, hey, God bless you. Go ahead and do it. Can't hate the player and hate the game. I mean, this is what it is now. And so if again, and I think, these, the way that they're doing recruiting now, where they took all these kids early, a lot of kids that, I don't want to say they're suspect because I'm excited that they're committed, but they're kids that in the past have had to come to camp and earn offers. I think that they took a bunch of these kids because, if you've got your payroll, say your payroll is $1 million in the NIL game and you've got 25 spots. Well, if you take 20 kids and, none of them are NIL kids or they're small NIL kids, then those last 5 spots are when you can break out the bank. You can go get JJ Smith for $500,000, or you can go get that, you can go get Brandon Baker, the tackle out of De La Salle in California, and pay him $500,000 because, when Samson Okunloa is getting $500,000 or $1 million and he's the best tackle in the country last year, that's kind of the going rate now for a 5-star tackle. So, when you take the Armstrong twins and Mark Nave and those guys are getting next to nothing in NIL. They're getting $5,000 or $0 or whatever. Then you can go, it's kind of like playing fantasy football. Like if you play in a fantasy football auction league and your strategy is I've got a $200 budget and I'm going to spend, 90% of my budget on 5 superstar players and then, have dollar guys for the rest of the stuff. That's kind of what this recruiting strategy reminds me of, where, all of a sudden, we've got all these guys committed. So now, all right, 1870 collective and the foundation and cohesion. How much money can we collectively raise to throw at a 5-star tackle? Because right now, according to 247, there is one 4-star tackle in the country, or excuse me, 5-star tackle in the country in Brandon Baker. And he's a guy that really likes Ohio State and we have a good shot at. So, but the only way you're getting them in modern college football is you better have a big old bag of money to throw at this kid. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I mean, look, it's the reality of the way football is. I mean, I saw the kind of the menu of lists of things that you get from the NIL collectives for your money. There's everything from,
I'm going to pull the menu up. I promise you. Go ahead and we'll go through the menu.
one of the players will dress up like a clown and come to your kid's birthday party and do balloon animals and stand on the sideline and wrestle Brutus and I mean, there's just all sorts of great stuff in there. And I mean, look, I guess it's really no different than the way it's been as being a booster for years at Ohio State. Yeah, everything's always been pay for access. It's just the way in all of college football. The more money you pay, the more access that you get. But just seeing it on a menu, just I don't know, I don't know why, but it just cracked me up reading some of this stuff. And I don't know if you've got the menu handy. You can go through that.
Oh,
But
I'm getting it right now, baby. And we're gonna ask you guys in the chat, which of these menu items would you actually order? I mean, because some of them are like okay or cool or whatever, but they're really expensive. And I'm like, my God, I mean, I guess somebody's going to pay for it, but okay. The experiences menu. This is from the foundation, so I can shrink it a little bit here. And it's literally like a menu. There's appetizers, private tour of the Woody Hayes, which again, I've taken hundreds of people through the Woody Hayes over the last dozen years of my life or whatever, 15, 20 years, 20 years. And $3,500 to walk through the Woody Hayes is kind of hilarious, I guess. Maybe if you've never been there, it'd be fun. But 4 people, I mean, that's $900. I mean, you can fly to Vegas for $900 and have way more fun than that. Pre-game football, field access. Again, there's a zillion of these people that are down there for free. So to watch the guys warm up in pre-game for $5,000 is a little wild. Football practice and tour of the Woody Hayes, $6,500. I guess like I've been to so many football practices. I've been to so many at the Woody Hayes that if I never get to see the inside of the Woody Hayes again for the rest of my life, I'm good. Just because I spent years of my life in there. Basketball at the Schottenstein Center, dinner with a player coach, $5,000. Social media endorsement for $5,000. It's kind of hilarious. Attend the Friday night team meal for $10,000. The team meal isn't good at all. Like, I mean, it used to be better. It's gotten substantially worse. If you ate that meal for $10,000, you'd be, I think, furious. Team walk to the shoe, $20,000, which is a skull session walk, which if you wanted to, you could probably just walk next to the team as they walk through it. I mean, literally, they walk in the middle of the street. I mean, you can just walk next to them and save yourself $20,000 and go put it on some parlay on DraftKings or something. Athlete promotion, $25,000. I mean, I guess if you want to get somebody, but I mean, this depends. I don't know who you're getting for $25,000 because you're probably not getting CJ Stroud or Marvin Harrison for $25,000. Maybe for a shout out or something. I don't know if you're going to get like a full commercial for that. Dessert, autograph memorabilia, $2,500. I mean, I'm not an autograph guy, so that doesn't, whatever. Social media shout out for $5,000. I mean, I better get to own their Twitter account for $5,000.
Wait a second. Autograph memorabilia. Is that Storm Klein hip pads? Is that what they're talking about right
That's
there?
what they're getting. Yeah. The Storm Klein butt pad or whatever, hip pad. Video message from an athlete for $5,000. I mean, again, cameo. I mean, you get cameos for way less from A-list celebrities. Golf with a player coach, $7,500. I guess that would be fun. Play Muirfield. But again, it is what it is. Brand recognition. I guess you get your website on the foundation's website. Okay. Photo opportunity, $4,000. I mean, you could just hang out in the parking lot at the Woody Hayes and run up to Trey Henderson. Hey, Trey, can I get a quick pic? You can save yourself $4,000 and an office event with the player. So you could bring a player to the office. So for $6,500. I mean, that's as much as golfing all day. I mean, so again, I don't know. Like it's creative.
No, hold on. Doesn't the golf seem like the good value on that? The golf one seems like the good value.
By far, because you're gonna be with a coach for 3 hours, and you're gonna be shooting the crap. You're gonna be drinking beer. Like they're gonna be relaxed. Because if you see them like during practice, they're miserable and tired, and they've been working since 6 a.m. and they gotta go beat Penn State on Saturday. But yeah, if you get them in, on a downtime and they can golf at Muirfield for 7,100. Like, that, like, if you put a gun to my head and said, Kirk, you have to buy one, you have to get one of these, it's the golf, and it's not even close. Not even close. Because, I mean, that's 3 hours, relaxed atmosphere. It'll be fun. You can get a couple of your buddies to join. And, again, like, I think, you get these coaches on the golf course and away from the Woody Hayes. Like, I think that's the one that's by far the most. I mean, if anything, given the value of some of these other things, that's the one that's got the best value, in my opinion. But I don't know. Like, I applaud the foundations for being creative and coming up with something where, people can actually get something for their donation. Because the problem with a lot of these collectives is, like, I just don't, like, what do you get for your money? If I give you 10 grand, what do I get? Oh, I get to buy CJ Stroud a mink coat. Awesome. Can't wait. It's like, I mean, I see what these guys are doing with their NIL money. And again, it's fine because that's the new wave and we got to stay competitive and whatever. But, I mean, you can give 10 grand to a children's cancer hospital if you want to or whatever.
Now, hold on. Speaking about CJ Stroud's mink coat, did you hear his comments about if he was king for a day for the NFL, that he would, like, eliminate, like, cold weather games or something like that? What was your take on that statement by C.J. Stroud, former Ohio State quarterback, or our leader, C.J. Stroud, talking about how he would make teams all play in a dome because he didn't like to play in the cold weather? How did that one strike you?
I mean, like, everybody feels like that, but you should never say that because you just sound so soft when you say, it's cold and I can't throw the ball and the weather stunk. And, because it reminds me of like that 15 Michigan State game where people were like, oh, it was a hurricane, it was rainy, and the better team didn't win. And it's like, you know what? Football is a game that's made for the elements. It's played in the elements. And that's kind of a great differentiator. And again, that's why you better be able to run the ball, better be able to stop the run. Because again, in 2007, I go back to that Michigan game I played in, my favorite game ever. It was freezing rain. Nobody could catch the ball. Todd Beckman couldn't throw the ball. Michigan couldn't throw the ball. The ball was so slippery. It was so wet. It was freezing rain. And guess what? You know what we did? We ran power and ISO like 40 times. I mean, I think if out of the 70 plays we ran, I think like 55 of them were two different plays. And we ran them left and right. And that was it. There was no high flying. There was no Brian Hartline touchdowns or Rubisky. I mean, and we had two really good receivers, Rubisky and Hartline. And guess what they had to do all day? Block. And guess what? We won. We were functional enough to operate in the cold weather. Because again, when you're in the league, you got to go to Green Bay. You got to go to Pittsburgh. You got to go to, I mean, the New York Jets might host a playoff game this year. And it's going to be cold and terrible. But that's the game. And again, like, when I had Ted Ginn and Gonzo and Troy, deep down, I didn't want to play in the rain. I wanted it to be clear and sunny and not windy because I wanted us to be able to throw the ball and not be one-dimensional, because it's really easy to stop when you're a one-dimensional team and you run into the box every single play like we used to. But if that happens, you better be ready for it. And again, I hate when he says like some of the dumb things that he says, because I'm like, dude, like, nobody's going to be like, wow, CJ, that's a really compelling statement. Like, everybody should be in a dome. And even if everybody believes it, like, I mean, I live in Columbus, Ohio. I don't like sitting outside in the cold for 3 hours. Like, I like Lucas Oil Stadium because it's a nice dome. It's like you're walking into a shopping mall, or Jerry World. It was a nice dome. I mean, I was with you for that Oregon Ohio State game when it was it felt like it was 5 degrees outside that stadium, waiting for them to open the gates. We walked into the AT&T Stadium in 2014 for that Oregon game, like 3 hours before the kickoff, because it was so cold outside. But I didn't, but if you got to play football on it, you got to play football on it. So again, I don't know. I wish he wouldn't say stuff like that, because, everybody knows that. But, when you come out and say it, people are just going to think you're soft, like, period, and that's why, and it's like, it's an excuse making mechanism when we lose in bad weather, or we don't play well in bad weather, or, we go to Northwestern and Northwestern's 1-10 and they hang with us for a little bit because it's windy and cold and yeah, but dude, that's football. That's life. I mean, it's not like, if you're playing golf and you're in the elements and not rain, but if you're in like crazy wind or whatever, like those guys have to adjust to it. That's part of the gig. They don't cancel it because it's too windy. They might, if it's thundering, they will, but that's part of it. I don't know. I wish he wouldn't say stuff like that because it doesn't play well. No matter how honest you're trying to be, no matter how much people agree with you. Because again, if they put a dome on the Browns stadium, I think it'd be great. I think a lot of people like to go to games in December when it's not 5 degrees and snowy, and nobody likes to sit outside in the snow and be miserable. Like nobody in Ohio when it's the middle of December is like, you know what, I'm gonna go sit on my back porch and put on my 7 layers of clothing and freeze to death just because I like sitting out here in the white death that is winter in Ohio when we have bad winters. Is that what you were expecting me to say? I'm sure it was.
I mean, I didn't know exactly what you say, but yeah, when I saw that comment, I just kind of cringed. I'm just like, oh no, CJ, he's got to get a new publicist, or he's got to get somebody that stays with him, and he needs like a press secretary that can answer questions for him or something, because yeah, he does not come across well, in my opinion. He definitely doesn't exude the type of confidence and, dare I say, swagger that you want from your leader of your franchise, your head of your NFL organization. So yeah, that was when he said that one, I was just like, oh no, not again.
Well, I mean, like you compare that to like Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers grew up in Northern California, dreamed of being a 49er. I mean, people that haven't lived in, like when I lived in San Francisco, it's the greatest climate in the entire world. I mean, it is like, it was 70 degrees on Christmas Day when I lived out there. I walked out of the facilities in shorts, a t-shirt. I was like, man, and if I was in Ohio, I'd be, boots and shoveling the driveway. I was like, greatest climate in the world. Beautiful. Then he goes to Cal Berkeley. Again, beautiful climate. Plays in the Pac-10 back then, Pac-12 now, obviously. And, he gets drafted by Green Bay. And he could have been like, ugh, it's going to be cold for half the year. And I got to play in the NFC North where I got to go play at Soldier Field and Lambeau Field. And I got to play all these northern teams and it's cold. And instead, he just owned it and he dominated in the cold. He was a guy that, man, when it was minus 20 degrees at Lambeau, man, Rodgers was out there, a little mock turtleneck on, slinging that rock, throwing it like rockets to Devontae and Cobb and those guys. And he just owned it. I mean, he didn't cry about it. He didn't say, well, I wish I could play in a dome, or I wish I could play in warm weather, or I wish I could play in Southern California or whatever. But I don't know. Like, it is what it is. And again, I think that a lot of it with CJ was that, when we went up to Michigan and just got smashed by the Wolverines, like people were like, oh, it's because it was cold and it was windy and we couldn't throw it or we couldn't do as much on offense or whatever. And like, nobody cares. Like, I mean, it's either, in football, you have to figure out a way to win the game. You have to figure out a way to out scheme the other team, out tough the other team, whatever. And that was something that, we weren't able to do because maybe we couldn't execute as well. And honestly, like, when Gene Smith says that, well, if we have the playoffs and we have a home game, well, we don't want to host it at the Horseshoe. We want to move to Lucas Oil. I'm like, what are we talking about? You're telling me you want to turn out a home game at the Horseshoe to go to Lucas Oil? That's crazy, And again,
let me just jump in with one thing, because yeah, I'm so with you. And like, think about Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields comes to Ohio State, plays the quarterback position as well as anybody's played the position, and we're at a key moment for Ohio State in terms of the COVID situation where they shut down the season. And I believe that Justin Fields stepping up and putting out that social media post like he did and kind of displaying leadership made a difference in terms of the Big Ten returning to the field that year when they could have not played. And it's like, you think about, like, what is leadership? And that's what leadership is. Leadership is stepping up no matter how tough the situation is, stepping into the fray, taking a leadership role, saying stuff that may or may not be popular, and leading. And Justin Fields became one of my favorite players of all time at that moment when he did that. And so when he's gone on to the NFL now, gone into a bad bear situation, just a horrible
Oh,
situation with
oh,
nothing, and Justin Fields is like, heck with it. I'll just figure out. I'll just run. I'll just run, and we'll just figure out a way to cobble together a few wins or something like that. I mean, to me, that's leadership, and that's leadership's a lot of different things, but there's the Aaron Rodgers style, there's the Justin Fields style, but I'm not sure that just for me, I'm not sure the CJ Stroud style is the style that I want leading my team. It's I want that guy that'll take the team on his back. I want that guy that'll do whatever it takes to win. I've never been a fan of the comments of I'm not here to run the ball. I don't like the cold or whatever it is. But again, I don't want to turn it into a CJ Stroud knocking competition. I think it leads us back to the 2023 discussion, which is, look, we're only going to go as far as the quarterback position takes us this year. And
yeah.
that's where we need Kyle McCord. That's where we need Evan Brown to be leaders. And, one of the things that Kyle McCord was doing during the spring, even with the black jersey and during practice, he was pulling the ball down and running it, sticking his nose up there and doing that. And that showed me something about Kyle McCord right there. That was like, he is trying to send a message, a not too subtle message to the team. Hey, dude, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And, that's what kind of moved me from I'm not sure to I think he's definitely going to get the first reign, because I think Kyle gets it. I think Kyle gets it, and I think Kyle understands what this team's been lacking. This team's been lacking leadership. Last year, the best players on the team were underclassmen. The elder statesmen really weren't the kind of the holler guys. And I think McCord recognizes that, and I think that we're going to see a different style come from our quarterbacks, whether it's McCord or whether it's Devin Brown. There's going to be more of a leadership role, and I think it's going to be palpable, and I think it's going to be something that you're going to really be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, I agree. And Justin Fields, every fantasy league I'm in this year, I'm taking that guy. I mean, I had him last year. I had him in every league last year. And, he was on a team that literally was tanking to get a higher draft pick. Like, literally got the first pick in the draft, traded to Houston. But they were the worst team in the league. They were trading Roquan Smith and anybody that had a pulse. They had nobody on the offensive line, the worst offensive line in the league by a country mile. No wide receivers. I mean, their lead receiver was Chase Claypool, was terrible. And he should have made the Pro Bowl. I mean, I thought it was a crime against humanity. It wasn't a Pro Bowler. But that's the kid that they played San Francisco. San Francisco, the top defense in the entire NFL. Nick Bosa, all those superstars versus the worst offensive line in the league. And Justin Fields carried that team on his back, and they won. And it was in the elements. There's that famous photo of him sliding across Soldier Field in the rain and in the sludge. And you know what? He ran the ball. He figured out a way to get it done with grossly inferior guys around him. And now this year, they got some dudes around. They got DJ Moore. They drafted a first-round tackle. It's a whole new day in Chicago for Justin Fields. And so again, now that he has a legit number one weapon in DJ Moore, what's he going to do now? It's another year in the offense. So, I love Justin Fields. I think he's an awesome player. And again, that's why, as much as people think that, we're crazy, when quarterbacks are scared to run, when it starts getting a little snowy, a little cold, a little windy, it's harder to throw the ball. The QB run is the lifesaver. It really is, and I'm telling you, Justin Fields, go watch the Chicago game in that rain, couldn't throw the ball, hurricane winds or whatever it was. I don't know what it was, but it was really, really bad. I don't know if it was like remnants from some storm or something, but it was like a nonstop downpour the whole day, and you couldn't do anything on offense. And again, I didn't like playing in that when I was in college, because especially when we had Teddy. Teddy was very anti-rain. Cold and rainy. Those skill guys do not like cold and rainy. They can't catch the ball. It makes their offense more one-dimensional. But if that's what it turns to, then hey, let's roll. You gotta figure it out and go get it. 411 dudes, appreciate you, my man Neil, as always. Got a lot of the crew in here tonight. But I do agree. Cold weather games do suck, but if that's the battlefield, man, it's time to roll. I mean, we had to play in some cold games, and in at Northwestern, it was always cold. Iowa, we got absolutely slaughtered in '04 out there. It was freezing. But that's hey, it's time to go. Man up. Yeah, I agree, sir. I think CJ. There's sometimes you might say something that everybody agrees with, but you still shouldn't say it. I mean, that's in this world that we live in today. It's never been more apparent. There might be something that's the most obvious thing in the world. You can't say it because people will get upset. People say, "Oh, you're this or that or whatever," and you just got to shut up and don't say it. So I agree. I think he's too honest for his own good, and that's something that as you learn that people will dissect and break down every word you say, you just say less. I mean, you don't need to talk to these people. You don't need to be that honest, and it is what it is. We're gonna wrap this thing. That was a fast 15 minutes, Lord. I'll leave this one. Does Kyle McCord? This would be amazing if this happens. Does Kyle McCord remind you of Troy Aikman from the Cowboys? God, that'd be a gaudy comparison. Do you see that at all, Nevada? I don't really see that. I don't know what Kyle does remind me of, but I don't know if it's Aikman. But if it is Aikman, that'd be amazing because he went first overall in the draft. But what are your thoughts? Is there any guy that Kyle McCord reminds you of from the past, NFL-wise, college-wise, or at any level?
I mean, to me, he reminds me a little bit of Bobby Hoying. He's got a little bit of Bobby Hoying in him, and that's a good thing. I mean, I thought Bobby Hoying's senior year at Ohio State was right in the pantheon of great years for sure for any quarterback. And no, look, I think Kyle is in a great position right now. He's 3 years under his belt, going to be here. Had a chance. The job is his. He's got this embarrassment of riches in terms of weapons on the offensive side right now, and he's going to have every opportunity to be good. If he's not really, really good, that's on Kyle. And from an Ohio State standpoint, well, we got options behind him. But I root for all of them, but I'm certainly rooting for Kyle to do it because if he's good, we're going to be really good this year because it literally is the only question that I have, the only legitimate question I have. I'm really not worried about the offensive line. I'm really not worried about place kicking. I have no concerns about the defense, even the interior line. I think we're going to be just fine. I think it's going to be an absolutely dominant unit. Like I said, the only open question I have is quarterback, and that's the thing I'm most excited to see in the fall is how many steps have they taken over the summer, how much have they improved, how much have they moved to solidify their position, because for Kyle he's got a golden opportunity, and I want to see if he grabs that ring and runs with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't wait to see who wins the quarterbacking gig. Again, I love Devin Brown. I watched his film. I talked to him a bunch. I talked to him about how much I love watching him read the read option is like, it's so overpowered when you don't run it a ton, when it's not your bread and butter, and you just kind of break it out at points. Because if you only run it a little bit, sparingly, maybe in the red zone, teams don't prepare for it as much as they used to because you don't see it as much as he used to because people are scared to get the quarterback hurt. But, if you break that thing out in the red zone and you haven't shown it and the ends aren't used to the responsibilities, hey, I'm tackling the dive, or hey, I'm going to I'm taking the quarterback, or I'm taking the running back. Like, if you don't work that stuff out in practice and rehearse it, the guys aren't going to know what to do, and then all of a sudden there's going to be just wide ass open lanes, in the running game, especially down in that short red zone area, which is where I think it's really effective. Brass tacks, my man, this is a great question. What was the best offensive line since 1990 at Ohio State? Nevada, I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll probably name three. But do you want me to go first? And then you can, because I'm the O-line guy. But
yeah, I'll have you go. I've got my own idea. I can tell you that some of the lines, they're going to be recent. They're going to be during the study, or I can tell you that. But I'll let you go.
No. Well, the top one by far is 2013. That was Mewhort at left, and then you got Norwell next to him, and then you got Corey Lindsley at center, Marcus Hall at right guard, and then Pat Elflein played that Michigan State game. Then right tackle Taylor Decker. So you've got a first-round pick at right tackle in Taylor, a second-round pick in Mewhort at left tackle, Lindsley, highest paid center of all time, Norwell, highest paid guard of all time when they signed their second contracts. Elfline, who was probably better than Marcus. And I love Marcus, but Elfline ends up winning the Remington, being an All-American. I think he was a second or third round pick. Still kicking around in the league a little bit. So I mean that's a really talented crew. The next unit, it's tough. I really want to go 2019 because I thought Wyatt was much better in 19 than he was in 20. 20, he was hurt. 19, Wyatt Davis was a guy that I thought was going to be a first or second round pick, was going to be a high end guard. 19, Brandon Bowen. Josh Myers starting for the Packers now. Left tackle, we had Thayer out there. It was a good unit, really good unit. We had a couple guys working at left guard. 21 is one that is sneaky good. Again, the 21 offensive line, and they might really be number 2 if you really put a gun to my head. In 2021, everybody remembers us losing to Aiden Hutchinson because people are dumb. And Aiden Hutchinson is one of the best players in the NFL already as a rookie and should have been the number 1 overall pick. And so, honestly, I thought we did a really crappy job of protecting against them from a schematic standpoint. Because when you figure out that a guy that we can't handle a guy one-on-one, you better help our tackles out. And in that game, DeWand pulled himself out of the game. So, you had to put Thayer at left after he played guard all year, and you had to put Nick Petit back at right. And it was just a cluster. It was a FUBAR situation. But, I thought that year with Nick Petit at left tackle, DeWand at right tackle, Thayer bumps into left guard. That was a really, really strong unit, man. I'm telling you, Paris at right guard. Harry Miller was going to be the center. Obviously, we know what happened there, and then Luke Whippler stepped in. Again, the most insane stat of all time in the history of Ohio State football, and especially in that offensive line room, is in 2021, we had 6 guys make all Big Ten at some level, from first team, second team, third team, down to honorable mention, because Matt Jones made honorable mention all Big Ten, even though he only started like 4 or 5 games. Thayer's back was wonky, so Matt was rotating in, but when you only start 5 guys and 6 guys make all Big Ten, that's crazy. Like, I've never seen that before. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of college football for any team in any conference ever. So, that's probably the number 2 is that 21 team. Last year's unit was pretty good. Obviously, it could have been better, but, we should have beat Georgia. We should have won a national championship with that O-line. And, it's headlined by Paris, who went 6 overall. DeWand, he was more talented in college than his draft status shows. Really botched the draft practice or the draft deal. Donnie Jackson, first team All Big Ten guy as a sophomore. Whippler, that was a really, really good line last year. But what's your opinion, Nevada? I'd see, did I get it right? Am I wrong? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, arguing offensive line stuff with you is kind of like arguing gentlemen's clubs with me or something like that. Like, you got to stick with the stuff that you know. But
yeah,
no, the 2013, those guys all ended up being great, but I'm not sure they were as great at that time. Just to my untrained eye, the 19 line was ridiculous. The 21 line was ridiculous. Last year, the fact that we had 3 guys leave off the offensive line early with eligibility left to go to the NFL draft is just insane to me. That is just, I'm pretty sure that's never happened before in college football history for any program, to have them have 3 guys leave early from the offensive line with eligibility and go to the NFL draft. Just don't think it's ever happened. So I just don't think we can really appreciate how good these offensive lines have been recently, because we're doing stuff that we've never done before. So many All-Americans, so many draft picks, so many early entrants. Just like I said, it's been an embarrassment of riches. And again, to me, the irony is that we've never spent more time talking about how bad the offensive line is than recently, and it's been the best offensive lines in school history. So the dichotomy is truly mysterious to me.
Yeah, I mean that that offensive line in 13, we averaged 5.2 a carry, which is insane. 242 on the ground. And yeah, it was a 10-2 team because the problem with the 2013 team is the offense was great. That was the worst defense of the Urban Meyer era by far. Followed by 18, nothing tops 18. So we gave up like 50, 80-yard runs that year. But, 13 was a team that was an inch away from playing for the national championship. Obviously, they choked versus Michigan State, and then they lost to Clemson because, again, you can't stop anybody. It's hard to judge the offensive line when the defense can't stop anybody. And, that's why they had to go get Chris Ash in there to fix it. It was a long year for Everett Withers and Luke. But, yeah, I think rushing-wise, and again, that 13 year was obviously aided by Braxton because Braxton was, a machine running the ball as JT was after him. But again, I look at the talent across the board. Second round and first round pick of tackle. The interior guys being good. Marcus was a weak link there, but Marcus still was a really good college player. So I would take 13 over any of them just because it probably exciting. I know all those kids. This last year's unit was pretty good. I think that Paris and Dewan probably get the edge a little bit over Taylor and Jack just from overall talent, but it's more because of how great Paris is. And Paris was a third-year guy. I mean, Jack was a fifth-year guy when he played in 13. So, that's just my opinion, though. But I love this. This is the best. Dave Rice bringing it in for you, Nevada. Dave Rice, you're the best, man. I appreciate you on here every day. Kirk says, any offensive line without Orlando Pace is the best. He said Pace was a loser. There you go, Nevada.
Yeah.
You started.
No,
there you go.
I know. It's really sad this the Orlando Pace slander that goes on the thing. But hey, Big O, man, you're my guy. You're my guy. I loved you. I loved great college, great high school basketball player as well. If anybody was out there, I had a chance to watch him play basketball. I actually got to see a chance to watch him play a high school basketball game, and it was one of the more awe-inspiring things. Because I didn't really, when I went to the game, I didn't really know that much about Orlando Pace, and I left the game going, oh my! I just saw something really, really special because that big man was light on his feet and could do a little bit of everything. But yeah, great basketball player, great football player. Despite what Mr. Barton says, great football player and definitely somebody that belongs on the pantheon of greats.
Yeah, and Orlando Pace he's the greatest player in Ohio State history by far. So I'll just get that out of the way. So that's my level of hatred. And I said that to everybody. It was like, what about Archie? And I was like, no, Orlando's better than Archie. Orlando's 3-and-out, number 1 overall pick. He has more trophies in the hallway than anybody by far. You see one of the Lombardis and the Outlands, and I mean, there's just trophy after trophy. So Orlando's the best player in school history. So, well, we're gonna wrap this. Any final words about us? A great show, man. We were cranking 62 minutes. Whew. Any final nuggets for these guys as we head off into the night?
Not just the Philbin hire. Cannot be more excited about that. This is one to be really excited about. You don't normally get excited about analyst hires. This is one that's worth getting excited about. So great day for the Buckeyes. Ryan Day did work.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so we'll wrap this thing. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you for joining us on Scoop Live, the Scoop World Order. We love seeing you guys on here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the great questions, the great energy. Again, I love doing this stuff with you guys. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and click that little alert bell if you love our content and you guys want to be on for every time we go live. So we appreciate you guys. Sue, I'm praying for your Celtics. It doesn't look good, but God bless them. At least they get to end the season in South Beach. Could always be worse. So again, appreciate you guys. Leave us some feedback. Shout out where you're from. Comment. What kind of impact do you think Joe Philbin's going to have? And who are some young offensive linemen that you want to see step up? So put that down in the comments. I read all your comments. I love and appreciate you guys for your comments. So thank you guys for that so much. And again, shout out to all you guys watching from all over the world. Thank you. We really appreciate it. If you guys enjoy this content, BuckeyeScoop.com is the place to be. I'm telling you, we're on all night. I'm about to go jump on there right now and just work on the message board a little bit, answer some questions, talk a little bit more about the Joe Philbin stuff, and just crank away. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Again, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys as always. Go Bucks.